The storm came first. It tore itself into existence above the ash-choked trenches of Tranus 4, ripping a hole through a sky long strangled by fire and industrial soot. Guardsmen of the 122nd Cadian replacement, already half broken by weeks of chaos raids, looked up as thunder rolled without clouds, as if the sound itself were lost and searching for a home. Vox units screeched, Auspex arrays went blind. Even the Emperor's Tarot, clutched tightly by the regiment's shaken psyche, began bleeding ink. And then something fell. A blazing comet, wrapped in spiraling arcs of lightning, punched through the upper atmosphere, shearing through flak lines and scattering panicked renegade aircraft. Its descent screamed across the wasteland, scorching trenches, melting ferrocrete, and slamming into no man's land with such force that an entire battalion was thrown off their feet. Silence followed. Silence, and a faint rising hum of energy the Imperium had no name for. As dust cleared, the crater glowed like the forge heart of a dying star. Standing at its center, tall as a statue of ancient heroes, cape in tatters, armor scorched and smoking, was a golden-haired figure gripping a hammer that hummed with impossible power. Thor exhaled, smoke billowing from his lips. He wiped blood from his brow, Asgardian ichor glittering faintly, and looked up at a sky that was not his own. The air here felt heavy, thick with sorrow and burning fuel. The sun was redder, dimmer, and the wind carried cries of the dying like a dirge. "This is not Midgard, nor any realm I know." Mjolnir vibrated with agitation, its runes flickering erratically. The Bifrost had not delivered him. This was something else, something violent, uncontrolled, a rift fling rather than a passage. He remembered the tear across Yggdrasil, the distortion that tasted of corrupted energy and a howling void. The warp. He did not yet know the name, but he felt its presence coiling around reality like an unseen predator. Guardsmen scrambled up from the trenches, weapons raised. Fear radiated from them so strongly the atmosphere seemed to dim further. Their uniforms were ragged, lasguns shaking in their hands. One whispered, "Emperor, preserve us. Is that an angel?" Another spat, "No angel would come here. Look at him. That's a warp-spawned mutant." Thor heard their words, but not their meaning. Their language was close enough to human tongues that his all-speak bridged a gap. Yet the tone, fear, suspicion, reverence, was universal. Thunder crackled at his fingertips, responding to his unease. The nearest guardsmen flinched back, some falling to their knees. With effort, Thor drew the storm back in. "I mean you no harm. I know not your war, nor your world, but I will defend myself if threatened." The soldiers exchanged looks. No one lowered their weapons. A commissar stepped forward, coat flapping like a mourning banner, bolt pistol aimed at Thor's heart. "You will identify yourself and declare your allegiance. By the authority of the Imperium of Man, you will kneel and submit to inspection." Thor blinked. "Kneel? I kneel to no man." The commissar cocked the bolt pistol. "Then by law you are a heretic." The tension snapped like a wire. The commissar fired. At the instant that the bolt pistol fired, Mjolnir twitched in Thor's grip, almost autonomously, absorbing the explosive bolt against its Uru surface with a dull flash. The hammer hummed undipprovingly. Thor's eyes hardened. "I will endure your fear, but not your violence." The commissar took aim again. This time Thor moved first, blurring forward with Asgardian speed, gripping the man's weapon arm and twisting it upward. The bolt pistol fired into the air, detonating harmlessly. Gasps and shouts echoed across the trenches.
Thor released the commissar gently but firmly. "I ask again, what realm is this?" Before the shaken officer could respond, Vox units crackled with new orders. "All forces, withdraw from the anomaly zone. Inquisitorial vessel inbound. Secure perimeter immediately." The word inquisitorial meant nothing to Thor, but the way every guardsman recoiled at its mention spoke volumes. Fear sharpened the air. Some soldiers ran. Others simply stared at Thor as though he'd already been condemned. A thunderous boom rolled overhead as a black, skull-adorned gunship emerged from the cloud cover, engines roaring with wrath. Its purity seals flapped like red tongues as it descended. Thor turned his gaze upward. "More warriors?" "Not warriors," the Psyker whispered, trembling. "Judges, executioners. If they decide you're a daemon," his voice cracked, "we won't even recover your ashes." The gunship slammed onto the battlefield, blowing dust in spirals. Ramps hissed open, and a squad of stormtroopers emerged, black carapace armor gleaming, hell guns trained on Thor. Behind them strode a tall figure, clad in ornate, skull-encrusted armor, cloak swirling like a shadow. An inquisitor. Her eyes were sharp, burning with the intensity of someone who had seen horrors beyond reason and survived by becoming more terrifying than any of them. She stopped a few meters from Thor. "Identify yourself. Name, species, warp classification." Thor tilted his head. "I am Thor Odinson, Prince of Asgard, God of Thunder." A ripple of disbelief shot through the troops. The Inquisitor didn't flinch. "Origin world. I come from realms far beyond your star kingdom. I arrived through a rift when—" She cut him off. "Your thunder manifestation, psychic or demonic?" "It is neither. It is divine." Murmurs erupted behind her. The Inquisitor raised a hand to silence them. She studied him for a long, cold moment. Then she spoke 5 words that sealed the fate of worlds. "Shackle him for interrogation." Stormtroopers advanced, shock maces crackling. Thor didn't move at first. He wanted peace. He wanted answers. He wanted to avoid needless bloodshed. But then he felt it, deep beneath the ground, in the very foundations of this war-torn planet, an echo of the same corrupt energy that had torn him from his universe, a warp breach. And something inside was waking. Mjolnir's runes flared. Lightning surged up Thor's arm. He met the Inquisitor's gaze. "If your realm is besieged by such darkness, then I will not go in chains." The ground trembled, the warp screamed, and the storm answered its challenger.
The storm broke before any soldier could draw breath. Lightning erupted from Thor's body in a spiraling shockwave, not a blast of anger, but a reflexive reaction to the warp convulsion beneath the crust. The air cracked white-blue, scorching picked-capped lenses and overloading half the regiment's Ozpex feeds. Stormtroopers staggered, some collapsing as electricity crawled over their armor, shorting out targeting visors and igniting purity seals. The Inquisitor did not fall. Her rosette flared with counter-warding inscriptions, null fields biting against the lightning as though chewing divine energy into bitter sparks. She hissed, shielding her eyes. "Psyker surge! Contain him!" But Thor wasn't surging. If anything, he was holding back, restraining Mjolnir's instinctive attempt to obliterate the warp-tainted anomaly. He lowered the hammer, dispersing the storm in a controlled burst. "I told you," he said, voice calm but resonant. "I am not your enemy. If you wish answers, cease your threats and your—" The ground split open. A scream tore through reality itself, neither sound nor meaning, but a violation of everything the universe pretended was law. Warp light poured upward in impossible colors, staining the sky with ultraviolet madness. The guardsmen collapsed in prayers and curses. The commissar shoved trembling soldiers back. The Inquisitor's eyes widened. A spontaneous tear? Here? Impossible! Daemon flesh spilled upward like molten wax. A creature dragged itself from the breach, towering over tanks and trenches alike. Its skin shimmered between red muscle and scaled black armor. Eyes burned with hateful intelligence. A champion of Khorne, imbued with warp-tainted resilience and crowned with horns dripping liquid brass. It roared, a war cry steeped in bloodlust, and charged directly toward the Inquisitor. Thor moved before thought. His leap left a crater. Lightning peeled open the air like a seam as he crashed into the demon mid-charge. The impact detonated across the battlefield, flinging soldiers backward. Thor's fist hammered into the demon's face with a force that would have toppled a titan. The creature skidded across the ground, carving a trench through ferrocrete and shattered bones. Guardsmen stared, slack-jawed. "By the throne," someone whispered. "He just punched a bloodthirster?" Not a bloodthirster, not yet. Smaller, a herald. But the fear was real and justified. The daemon shook its head, laugh-grinding. Its axe crackled with warp energies eager to taste divine blood. It stood massive and hateful. "You are no god," it snarled. Thor twirled Mjolnir once, letting the hammer hum with gathering storms. "Every monster tells me that. They are always wrong." They collided again, meeting with a sound like a star collapsing in miniature. Axe met hammer. Warp energy clashed with thunder. The sky rippled as the eddies of their blows distorted gravity and bent sound. The daemon snarled, spitting warp flame. Thor batted the fire aside with a swing that vaporized the flame mid-air. Then he struck again. And again. And again. With each blow, the daemon's body warped further, its form straining, leaking crimson steam. It roared in fury, swinging its axe in a desperate arc that could shear a bane blade.
Thor caught the blade. He caught the blade. Mjolnir pinned it to the earth with a thundering slam, runes flaring white-hot. The demon shrieked as the hammer's divine aura chewed through its warp essence, tearing the creature's grip from its own weapon. Thor lifted the demon bodily and hurled it back toward the tear it had crawled from. Lightning crawled up his arms, responding to a presence in the wart that felt wrong. The tear was widening, not closing, and something deeper, older, more ravenous than the demon was stirring behind the veil. Thor's expression hardened. Mjolnir blazed. He raised it high and brought it down with enough force to shatter the air itself. A pillar of lightning fell from the heavens, smashing into the breach. Reality buckled. The daemon howled as its form unraveled, pulled screaming into nothingness. For a moment the tear resisted, fighting to remain open, feeding on fear, blood, desperation.
Thor's second strike obliterated it. The battlefield fell silent, except for crackling embers and the wheeze of damaged Vox units. Smoke curled from the ruined ground. The demon's axe lay in two melted halves. Thor exhaled slowly, letting Mjolnir cool. The hammer's runes dimmed from white-hot fury to their usual soft glow. The Inquisitor stared at him, expression unreadable. She stepped forward cautiously. "You..." She closed a warped breach. Thor nodded. "It threatened your realm. I acted. No psyker can do that alone. I am no psyker." The Inquisitor's jaw tightened. She was analyzing every detail, his power, his control, his refusal to submit, his easy destruction of a demon that required entire companies to contain. Her troops waited for her judgment. Thor sensed the weight of it, the knife edge between alliance and execution. He planted Mjolnir at his side, standing tall. "Now, Inquisitor, I have questions of my own." She didn't blink. "You may ask. Where am I? What force drags monsters through reality as though borders do not exist? What realm burns its own people in such endless war?" The Inquisitor hesitated, but only for a second. "You stand in the Imperium of men, the last empire of humanity. And we are beset on all sides, alien, heretic, and demon, each eager to tear us apart." Thor nodded slowly. "And you believe I may be one of those threats? We must assume so. Your divinity remains unproven. Your power could destabilize entire sectors. Your presence may attract more demonic manifestations. It appears you already suffer more than enough of those." A few guardsmen flinched at his tone, but the Inquisitor didn't. She studied him like a weapon she wasn't sure she could command or survive. Finally, she spoke. "You will accompany me for examination. Examination or imprisonment." Her silence answered for her. Thor lifted Mjolnir lightly. Stormlight flickered. "I will not be chained. But I will not abandon this world to monsters." He gestured toward the sealed rift. "If there are more such wounds in your reality, then your people have my aid until I understand this place." The Inquisitor's eyes narrowed. "A conditional alliance." "A temporary one," Thor corrected. "But yes." She considered this. Slowly, she lowered her rosette. "Very well, Thor Odinson. For now, you walk beside the Inquisition." In the distance, thunder rumbled, a reminder that his arrival had changed the balance of power, and someone or something deep in the warp was already watching him.
If the warp had lungs, it would have held its breath. The Emperor of Mankind did not walk into the chamber of divine audience. He arrived, as though the universe itself politely stepped aside. Each footfall bent probability. Each motion displaced centuries of accumulated psychic residue. Custodians bowed in orchestrated unison as the master of humanity approached the thunder-scarred figure waiting in the center of the Golden Hall. Thor Odinson stood straight, shoulders squared, Mjolnir hanging loosely at his side. Trail of lightning trailed behind him like loyal hounds. Though battered by his crash landing and warped by the metaphysics of this grim, dark future, the god of thunder looked utterly unfazed by the divine pressure saturating the room. He recognized power, he respected power, but he did not kneel. A hush spread across the chamber as the Emperor stopped mere meters from him, close enough that the gold in the walls hummed, vibrating in sympathetic resonance with their combined auras. Thor smiled. "You burn brightly, stranger, too brightly to be mortal. Are you a king, a god, or something caught between? The Emperor did not answer immediately. He studied Thor with the clinical precision of a cosmic surgeon, probing the soul thread, prying at the core of the Asgardian's being. Normally, such scrutiny shattered lesser minds like glass. Thor, however, swatted aside the psychic pressure with a laugh. "My father's ravens stared deeper than that, all-father of mankind. Try again." A custodian choked, but the Emperor did not react. If anything, he was amused. Then, with a voice deep enough to make reality flinch, the Emperor spoke. "You are no daemon, no psyker. Your essence is older, crafted rather than evolved. You carry divinity like a mantle. You remind me of the old ones, arrogant creators who shaped universes as playthings." Thor raised an eyebrow. "I have been called worse." Lightning crackled above him, filling the vaulted ceilings. The custodians instinctively shifted their footing, ready for violence. But Thor didn't attack. Instead, he simply asked, "Where am I truly? This world reeks of battle, endless battle. What realm is this where mortals cling to survival by a thread thinner than hair?" The Emperor's reply was blunt. "This is the Imperium of man, my Imperium, and battle is all that remains to us. You stand in an age where hope is rationed, and death is the only consistent truth." Thor frowned, not in fear, but in disappointment. Asgard knew war, yes, but never this despair. Even in the darkest Ragnarok, we fought towards something. You fight simply to postpone the end. The Emperor's eyes ignited, twin suns of psychic fire. "And you presume to judge my stewardship of humanity?" Thor shrugged. "Someone must." A silent war broke out between their auras, golden psychic luminescence versus storm-wrought cosmic power. The pressure bruised the air itself. Marble cracked. Custodians gripped their guardian spears so tightly the ceramite groaned. But neither struck. Instead, the Emperor turned and gestured toward a vast hololith blooming from thin air. Stars, battlefronts, tendrils of chaos infestations, imperial worlds burning by the thousands. This is the enemy.
He showed the Eye of Terror. Then Cadia's ruin. Then the Tyrannid swarms, blotting out constellations. Then Necron tomb worlds awakening. Then Orc warfronts blooming like tumors across the galactic map. This is what it means to lead humanity in this age. Thor's expression slowly hardened. He had fought gods, celestials, titans, cosmic dragons, eldritch abysses, but even he had never seen an entire galaxy weaponized against a single species with such relentless fury. Even the Aesir would have bent. Perhaps even Asgard would have fallen. Thor understood instantly why the Emperor was the way he was. Cold, iron-hearted, unyielding, a shepherd who wielded a hammer instead of a staff. "Your burden is heavier than Mjolnir." For the first time, the Emperor inclined his head, acknowledging the sentiment. "Then you have context. Now, who are you?" Thor stepped forward, lightning cascading around him in protective arcs. "I am Thor Odinson, son of Odin, god of thunder, breaker of monsters and defender of realms." He lifted Mjolnir. "And if your Imperium stands between annihilation and hope, then I will fight for it." A shockwave of psychic resonance rippled outward, not from hostility, but from potential. The Emperor's expression remained unreadable, but every custodian felt it. These two,
together, could change the course of galactic fate. Very well, Thor Odinson. Then hear me clearly. The Imperium does not need another god. It needs a weapon. Thor grinned. Then you shall have one. Lightning exploded across the chamber as Mjolnir roared with power, resonating with the Emperor's psychic field like two instruments vibrating in harmony. In that instant, something impossible occurred. Thor's lightning did not disrupt the Golden Throne's psychic lattice. It strengthened it. The Emperor's pupils dilated in genuine surprise for the first time in millennia. Thor stared at his hammer. Well, that's new? And the warp shuddered, because the galaxy had just gained another Emperor-level entity, one untainted by the warp, unburdened by the Imperium's fragility, free to act where the Emperor could not. A god who could swing freely, a god who could terrify demons, a god who could change everything. Welcome to the Imperium of Man, Thor Odinson. We have endless work to do. Across the warp, something impossible happened. The moment Thor Odinson formally aligned himself, even loosely, with the Imperium of Man, the immaterium rippled like a struck drum. Every chaos god, from the most bloated corners of Nurgle's garden to the burning crystalline spires of Tzeentch's labyrinth, felt the shockwave. A god had entered their realm. But not a warp-spawned god, not a psychic construct of mortal belief, a foreign god. A being whose divinity did not originate from emotion, fear, or worship, but from cosmic lineage and physical metaphysics beyond anything the ruinous powers had encountered. And that made him dangerous. Khorne was the first to notice. Skulls stopped falling in his citadel of brass as the blood god rose from his throne, nostrils flaring, sensing the thunderous presence pouring into the warp from a being whose rage was honest, not twisted, not fed by corruption, not born from slaughter, but pure and righteous. A pretender god that bleeds not from the warp. Khorne leaned forward. I will test him. Tzeentch recoiled, feathers unraveling into spirals of probability. No, he is not aligned to our lattice. He is a variable without a function, an equation written in another universe's mathematics. He is external. Nurgle chuckled, sloshing in his cauldron. Fresh air in my garden, delightful. I wonder if he rots. Slaanesh purred, delighted. Oh, he will be fun. His emotions are rich, textured, divine, untainted. I want to taste his thunder. But when they all turned their collective attention toward the material realm, to Terra, they saw him. Thor, crackling with lightning, standing beside the Emperor like a storm-given flesh, unbound by the warp, unafraid. They hated him instantly. The ruinous powers acted quickly. A demonic armada manifested on the outer rim of Segmentum Solar, focusing on a vulnerable agri-world, Bellis Corona. Millions lived there, easy prey for a demonstration strike. If Thor wished to stand with the Imperium, they would force him to bleed for it. Warp rifts tore open like wounds in reality. Kairos Fateweaver led the charge, flanked by a host of Lords of Change, Heralds of Tzeentch, and an ocean of pink and blue horrors. Skull cannons of Khorne rolled through rivers of molten brass. Rotting beasts of Nurgle slithered across the plains. Slaanesh's cavalry raced past them, shrieking in joyous hunger.
The Imperial Guard regiment stationed there did not even have time to scream. At least, until the sky cracked open. Thor descended like a meteor, lightning ripping open the heavens. Clouds spiraled into a vortex of raw storm stuff as Mjolnir dragged thunder down from orbit. Thunderheads exploded, shock waves folded mountains. Warp entities staggered backward, surprised that a mere physical storm dared to resist their essence. Then they saw him. Thor landed with a footstep so heavy it created a crater. Demons of whatever this realm calls you, hear me. Mjolnir spun into his grasp.
You will leave these mortals alone, or you will face my hammer. A herald of Slaanesh laughed. Pretty god, made of lightning and bravado, we will savor you. Thor answered by throwing Mjolnir through its skull, then catching the hammer on the backswing as if swatting a mosquito. What followed was slaughter, but not the kind that fed corn, not the kind that twisted the warp, not the kind that empowered chaos. Because Thor's power did not interact with the Immaterium at all. It erased it. His lightning disintegrated demons so thoroughly that their psychic signatures didn't return to the warp. They simply ceased. Mjolnir shattered reality rifts like glass, severing the anchor points demons needed to manifest. Warp flesh melted under stormlight that had no place in the metaphysics of chaos. Kairos Fate Weaver screeched in alarm, spreading his wings and weaving fate lines, attempting to predict Thor's movements. He saw nothing. Every timeline, every probability line he spun revealed only blinding light, like looking directly into a star. This creature breaks destiny itself, Fate Weaver hissed. Thor flashed forward in a lightning step, appearing in front of him. Fate Weaver flapped backwards in panic. You are not of this plane! You do not belong to thought or emotion! Mjolnir hit him like a meteor. Kairos unleashed a hurricane of sorcery, time loops, probability fractures, chronal inversions. Thor ripped through all of it like it was fog. He grabbed the Lord of Change by the throat, not metaphorically, but physically, and dragged him out of the air. You prey upon the weak. You twist fate for sport. I know your type. Kairos screeched, deflecting lightning with frantic gestures. Thor raised Mjolnir. Be gone. With a single strike, Thor shattered Kairos' form, sending the demon back to the warp screaming in fragmented multiverses. 3 minutes. A being who manipulated destiny across infinite timelines lasted 3 minutes. For the first time in millennia, chaos did something unthinkable. It blinked. The hordes stopped advancing. Then they ran. Khorne's demons growled in frustration, but even they felt it. Thor's lightning did not merely harm them, it unmade them. His blows severed the psychic tether they used to reform. His presence alone destabilized their cohesion. This was not a foe to fight head-on. And so the warp withdrew, dragging its legions back screaming into the closing rift.
The warp boiled. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. It boiled. Thor's annihilation of Fate Weaver and the rout of the daimonic invasion did not merely offend the ruinous powers. It destabilized the very ecosystem of chaos. A foreign god, free of the Immaterium's rules, had introduced a contaminant into their metaphysical realm. Something that should not exist. Something the Old Ones never accounted for.
Something Tzeentch could not calculate, something Slaanesh could not seduce, something Nurgle could not decay, something Khorne could not overpower. A god immune to the warp. And chaos responded with unprecedented fury. The four gods convene. In the heart of the Immaterium, atop a shifting platform made of dead galaxies, the four great chaos gods appeared simultaneously, an event not witnessed since the birth screams of Slaanesh. Thor's axe slammed into the plane, splitting stars in half. "The lightning whelp is mine. I will peel his godhood from his bones." Tzeentch's 1,000 faces cackled and frowned in overlapping dissonance. "No, you don't understand. He is a paradox. He is existence from outside our causality. He cannot be predicted, influenced, or redirected." Slaanesh smirked with decadent delight, "Which makes him fascinating. He will break beautifully." Nurgle stirred from his cauldron, moss sloughing off his immense shoulders. "Live long enough and everything rots, but this one doesn't rot. That concerns me." For a moment, the great game paused. No plots, no betrayals, no competition, only survival. "Then we must strike together," Tzeentch finally said. Khorne growled, Slaanesh hissed, Nurgle gurgled, but none refused. Their combined roar of willpower surged across the warp, and the fabric of unreality twisted into a singularity of hatred, the birth of a monstrosity not seen since the Age of Strife. A warp titan, a creature formed from the essence of all four chaos gods. A living apocalypse, with one purpose: kill Thor, break the Emperor, and annihilate the Imperium in a single blow. The end begins on Terra. The sky above Terra darkened as the Imperium's astropaths screamed in synchronized agony. Their minds detonated like overcharged psychers as a colossal warp breach formed above the cradle of humanity. The Golden Throne shrieked in psychic protest. Thunder boomed across the Imperial Palace as Thor materialized in a burst of stormlight, Mjolnir crackling. "The warp! It's coming here!" The Emperor appeared beside him. Not walking, but manifesting via sheer psychic displacement. Golden light bled from his armor. Every custodian fell prostrate. "Chaos has unified. They fear you." Thor grinned. "Good. This is not a battle we can fight separately. You will act as my fist, my reach, my unleashed potential." The air vibrated as the Emperor raised his hand toward Mjolnir. "Let us bind our powers, Stormborn." Thor nodded and held the hammer out. Lightning poured from Thor's veins. Psychic fire poured from the Emperor's soul. Two divinities, one physical, one transcendental, merged energies for the first time in galactic history. A Mjolnir ignited with golden warp lightning, a fusion of cosmic and psychic force so intense it bent gravity around it. Thunder pealed across Terra like a funeral bell. The fused warp titan arrived. Reality shattered. The warp yawned open like a mouth, and the monster emerged. It towered over mountains. Its body was a fusion of brass, rot, crystal feathers, and pulsating sensation flesh. Four voices echoed from one throat, a chorus of rage, mania, despair, and ecstasy.
Thor Odinson, Emperor of Man, we end you. The palace shook. Hive cities trembled. Orc warbands watching from the stars paused mid-brawl. A Tyrannid hive mind tendril flinched in confusion. Even the Necrons paused their cold calculations. This was a moment the galaxy would remember. The battle of two gods against four. Thor launched himself into the sky, a spear of thunder. The Emperor followed, surrounded by psychic suns orbiting his form. The clash, when they collided with the Warp Titan, ruptured the upper atmosphere. Lightning stitched across the monster's hide. Psychic blades carved chunks of demon flesh into motes of unbeing. Terran orbit broke into shards as the shockwave hit. The Warp Titan swung with a fist that could crush continents. Thor blocked it with Mjolnir, but the impact hurled him across the stratosphere. He slammed through 3 orbital defense platforms. Before the Titan could press the advantage, the Emperor teleported directly above it, unleashing a psychic orbital lance. The blast cracked the creature's skull, sending warp fluids pouring like rivers. Khorne's voice boomed.
The Titan summoned a chain axe the size of a hive spire and brought it down. Thor caught it with one hand. Try. He spun, redirected the blow, and hammered the Titan in the chest, cracking all 4 god cores inside it. Slaanesh shrieked. Tzeentch howled. Nurgle groaned. Khorne roared. The Emperor appeared beside Thor, his aura blazing like a supernova. Together. Thor nodded. Together. They rose as twin stars, one gold, one blue-white, and descended upon the Warp Titan with combined force. A strike of storm and soul, a blow that rewrote physics and shattered metaphysics, a divine judgment. Mjolnir connected with the Titan's god heart. The Emperor's psychic lance pierced its soul. The monster screamed as it died. And for the first time in history, all 4 Chaos Gods recoiled at once. The Warp Titan imploded, dragging the entire breach with it. Chaos howled in defeat as the Emperor and Thor drifted down toward Terra like falling suns. The Custodians knelt, the Sisters of Silence bowed, even the Mechanicus chanted prayers. The Emperor spoke softly. "You have done what no champion of humanity ever has." Thor smirked. "I do my best. You have changed the galaxy. Permanently." Mjolnir hummed. "Then let's keep going." The Emperor lifted his gaze toward the stars, and the future trembled with potential. The galaxy had shifted, permanently, irreversibly. Nothing, not the birth of Slaanesh, not the Horus Heresy, not the Great Rift, had so violently rewritten the fundamental shape of the 41st millennium as the arrival of Thor Odinson. In Thor, the Imperium gained something it never possessed: a god who could walk freely among mortals, a god who did not need a throne to stabilize reality, a god whose powers did not depend on the warp and thus could never be corrupted by it. Thor was not another Primarch, not another saint, not another living weapon crafted by the Emperor. He was something else entirely, a divine ally. And that alone changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Chaos reeled from the humiliation. The 4 gods retreated deeper into the warp than ever before, unwilling to risk another confrontation until they understood how to counter this strange extraterrestrial divinity. The Xenos empires found themselves suddenly overshadowed. Orcs viewed Thor with awe, calling him the biggest weird boy what ain't a weird boy. The Eldari whispered ancient prophecies about the return of the Sky King. The Necrons identified him as a Class Omega anomaly, too dangerous to provoke directly. The Tyrannid, sensing his unnatural nature, instinctively avoided worlds he visited. But the greatest transformation occurred within the Imperium itself. For the first time in 10,000 years, humanity saw a god who actually cared. Thor walked among the Astra Militarum. He fought beside space marines. He blessed worlds by cleansing them of demonic taint with sweeps of stormlight.
And every time he raised Mjolnir, he strengthened the psychic lattice of the Golden Throne, stabilizing the Emperor's eternal vigil. Historians, if any survived the endless dark, would call this era the Age of Thunder and Gold, an age where the Emperor had a brother in arms, an age where chaos knew fear, an age where hope returned to humanity. And for the first time in millennia, the Emperor allowed himself a rare thought. Perhaps the future can be won